fiction. Another influential science fiction film, it was never produced, was Satyajit Ray's The Alien. It was written in 1967. But the production of the film was canceled. The script became available throughout America and may have served as an inspiration for E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Did you see E.T.? Science fiction, there you go. Planet of the Apes, 1968, was extremely popular with the 4 sequels. Probably the most significant sci-fi film of the 60s was, of course, 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. It's regarded as the seminal entry in the science fiction genre as it influenced later entries. Steven Spielberg was one of the genre's most well-known figures, aptly called 2001 the Big Bang of science fiction. Did you see, 2001: A Space Odyssey? It was a groundbreaking in the quality of its visual effects, the realistic portrayal of space travel, and in the epic and transcendent scope of the story. Science fiction movies that followed this film would enjoy increasingly larger budgets and improved special effects, of course. Clark has told a screening earlier science fiction films for Kubrick, and Kubrick pronouncing them all awful without exception. So there you go. In the 70s, Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, both released in 1977, of course, contained a mystical element. The space discoveries of the 70s created a growing sense of marvel about the universe. The early 70s also saw a continued theme of paranoia, with humanity being threatened, of course. Notable films of this period include Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, 1971, THX 1138, Man vs. the State, Silent Running, and sequels to Planet of the Apes, and Westworld, Man vs. Robot. So there you go. The conspiracy thriller film was popular of this period, where paranoia plots by the national government or corporate entities. So there you go. These films included such efforts: Alien, 1979, Capricorn 1, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. No, you're fine. You're fine. So you were a Trekkie, so there you go. Did you see Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Logan's Run, 1976. Soylent Green, that was another one, 1973 with, of course, Charlie Heston there. And Future World. Hi, Lise. We're talking about sci-fi shows and movies. What's your favorite movie and what's your favorite show? If you from the day. We're in the 70s and we're talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Logan's Run, Soylent Green, and Future World. The science fiction comedy had what may have been the finest hours in the 70s with Woody Allen's Sleeper, 1973, and Dark Star, 1974. And, of course, in 1979, 3 notable science fiction films appeared. Star Trek the Motion Picture, of course. It brought the much-loved television series to the big screen. Alien upped the ante on how scary a screen monster could be. Time After Time pitted H.G. Wells against Jack the Ripper. That was a good movie, by the way. That was with a screenplay written by Nicholas Meyer, who would go on to direct 2 of the installments of the Star Trek films. So there you go. 1980s. Of course, after the huge success of Star Wars, sci-fi was a bankable commodity again. And each major studio rushed into production with their available projects. Star Trek television series was reborn as a film franchise that continued through the 80s and 90s. Oh, you gotta love the original Star Trek movies. They were great. Thanks to Star Wars in 1977, Star Trek 1979 franchises Escapism became the dominant form of sci-fi film through the 80s. The big budget adaptations of Dune in 1984 and Arthur C. Clarke's sequel to 2001, which was, of course, 2010 and 1984, were actually duds, believe it or not. Ridley Scott's Aliens, 1979, was, of course, significant in establishing a new visual style of the future. Excuse me. It, far from presenting a sleek, ordered universe, this alternative presented the future as dark, dirty, and chaotic. And, of course, building on earlier films such as Mad Max. Mad Max was 1979. That was, post-apocalyptic. There we go. Cowboys and Aliens, there you go. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. This dystopian vision became prevalent in many sci-fi films and novels. These included The Black Hole, 1979, Outland, 81, Enemy Mine in 1985. Do you remember Enemy Mine? Cowboys and Aliens, that was, yeah. There you go, Chris, you got it. Do you remember Enemy Mine? That was a great movie. If you haven't seen that one, please see it because it's really good. And Aliens, the film, 1986. And, of course, you got Scott's Blade Runner in 1982. And, of course, the strongest contributors to the genre during the second half of the 80s were James Cameron and Paul Verhoeven, The Terminator and RoboCop entries. So there you go. Steven Spielberg's E.T., The Extraterrestrial, 1982, became one of the most successful films of the 80s. And another influential film that was released, Scanners, in 1981. And that would be imitated several times over. Yes, Aliens with Sigourney Weaver. So, see, you have seen sci-fi movies and stuff. So there you go. Okay. From 1980, the distinction between sci-fi, fantasy, and superhero blurred, thanks in part to the influence of Star Wars. And from 1980 on, every year saw at least one major sci-fi or fantasy film, which the critics ignored on Oscar night, which was crap, as we all know, and except in the technical categories. Disney's 82 film Tron had a unique visual style, and one of the first major studio films to use computer graphics. But if you noticed, yeah, a lot of sci-fi films are totally ignored. Yeah, see, you saw it. That's right. And the 1980s and later saw growth of animation as a medium for science fiction films. This was particularly successful in Japan, where the anime industry produced Ghost in the Shell in 1995. 1990s. It was the emergence of the World Wide Web and cyberpunk genre during the 1990s spawned several internet films, both The Lawnmower Man, which was awful, and Virtuosity in 1995. Dealt with threats to the network from a human computer. Total Recall, 1990, had the memories of their main actors modified. The Matrix, 1999, created the machine-run virtual prison for humanity. And the internet also provided the ready medium for film fandom, who could directly support or criticize media franchises. Disaster films remain popular with themes updated to reflect recent influences. Armageddon, 1998. Deep Impact, 1998. Used a threat of massive impact with the Earth. Independence Day, 1996. Recycled the 50s alien invasion films. Advances in genetic science were also featured. Jurassic Park, 93. So there you go. All these films. The Matrix, yeah. Can you do that move? I can't. There you go. As the decade progressed, computers played an increasingly important role in the addition of special effects and production. Let me see. I don't want to. Large render farms made of many computers in a cluster were used to detail images. As the software developed in sophistication, it was used to produce more complicated effects, such as wave movement, explosions, and even the little fur-covered aliens. Shut up. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. That's up to you. Gee whiz. So, as in the 80s and every year of the 1990s, one or more major sci-fi films or fantasy films were produced. Oddly, in the 2000s, this decade, of course, sci-fi films seemed to turn away from space travel and fantasy, except for Star Trek and Star Wars films. The only films set off Earth that appeared were Serenity, Titan AE, and of course Mission to Mars and Red Planet. But The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions were quite popular. Indeed. Sci-fi has returned to being a tool for political commentary in recent times with films like AI, Artificial Intelligence, and Minority Report. By the middle of the decade, the theater audience began to decline and was again the numbers reflected in attendance in sci-fi movies, of course, decreased during this period. You had whole movie theater systems came close to matching them. And of course, you have the DVD releases. So, that's kind of the way of the science fiction movies. Let's see. That's the most recent of the 2010s. We have Altitude, Alien versus Ninja. I do not recommend that. Hey, stop. Yes, Blade Runner 2049. Absolutely see that one. Arctic Blast, The Book of Eli. That was post-apocalyptic. I'll say it. Book of Eli, The Crazies. Future Ex-Cops. That was Hot Tub Time Machine. It was a comedy, but it was all right. Inception. Predators, of course. The Predator movies. Blade Runner 2049, you go, yes. Resident Evil, Afterlife. These are all post-apocalyptic films. Battlestar Galactica, one of the shows, came back with, what was his name? James Olmos. He played the captain of the ship. Remember the later version of Battlestar Galactica? Universal Soldier. We had Another Earth, Apollo 18. Battle Los Angeles. And of course, Chris's favorite, Cowboys and Aliens. That was a good movie. I like it. It was entertaining. I Am Number 4. Remember iRobot? Prometheus. Inception rocked. Yeah, it did. Prometheus, yes. Absolutely. You had all those, so those were great. I really like Ghost of Mars from John Carpenter. I thought that was a wicked movie. It really was. Prometheus was good. The Crazies, of course. The Thing, of course. You had the Transformer movies. Battleship. That was another one. Dredd. Judge Dredd. Hunger Games. These are all, future type movies. The Men in Black movies. Yeah, Ridley Scott is great. Prometheus was good. Starship Troopers. There you go. Dark Skies. Elysium. There was one.